Hello and welcome to my impressions of Mario Tennis Aces for the Switch. Now, before I begin with my full-on thoughts of the game, I want to say that I don't necessarily hate Mario Tennis Aces as a game itself, but I hate what it represents and what it could mean for certain Nintendo games moving forward. I'm a complete newbie to the Mario Tennis series, and after going into this game, I'm not really interested in ever playing another one ever again, unless of course they fix a ton of the issues I have with it in the next release. This game has been a complete turn-off for me personally, but before I go on about all of the aspects of the game that I hate, let's first acknowledge what the game does well. The gameplay is really where the game shines. At its core, it's obviously just a simple tennis game, but there's so much depth and complexity to the sport of tennis that even without being a Mario game, the gameplay would have been great. But then because it's a Mario game and not a straight up tennis sim, there has to be something wacky and more interesting to make it stand apart from the competition, right? So as well as the standard topspin, drop shot, lob, flat and slice shots which are fundamental to any tennis game, you can perform trick shots which enable you to fly across the court and return the ball, which would be impossible in a regular tennis game. You can use zone speed to slow down time, which again enables you to reach the ball when it would otherwise be impossible. You can do an ultra smash, which lets you smash the ball to any position on the court at any time, and you can do zone shots, which, again, lets you smash the ball anywhere on the court, but this time you can only pull off this move if you stood on a star icon on the floor, rather than being able to do it freely. All of these special moves are tied to an energy gauge which is filled primarily by charging up the normal hits and successfully returning the ball. As you can imagine, all of these different abilities which can be activated at pretty much any time can create some really fun and tense matches, and when you're against a player of a similar skill level, the game's mechanics really do all come together and it can be an incredibly fun experience. Of course, with this being a first-party Nintendo game, the graphics are also extremely good, and there's a nice attention to detail in the court backgrounds with many characters from the Mario universe watching the matches and cheering for different characters playing on the court. I found the soundtrack to be very forgettable personally, but the sound design is great and makes your shots feel satisfying and powerful, which is kind of essential for a tennis game. But enough beating around the bush and let's get to the nitty gritty. Why do I hate Mario Tennis Aces? Well, let's start with the biggest reason. There's almost no content to be found here. Sure, there's an adventure mode, but this is incredibly short. It literally took me 2 sittings to complete the whole thing, and it ends up feeling more like a tutorial than a full-on single-player experience. Just when it felt like the game was getting difficult and actually beginning, it finished, and I felt extremely underwhelmed. So then I figured I would check out the other modes the game had to offer. Maybe there would be a doubles adventure mode you can play with friends, or mini-games, or a new game plus, or a boss rush mode or something. But no, there's nothing of any value to play single player outside of this frankly pathetic adventure mode. There's not even any real reason to play the adventure mode either, because the only things you unlock are new rackets for Mario to use within adventure mode itself, and a pathetic amount of new courts to play on. The issue with unlocking these courts is that the emphasis of the game is quite clearly the tournament mode, and in this mode the courts are selected for you anyway, so it doesn't even matter what you've unlocked or haven't unlocked. Mario levels up in adventure mode, which feels rewarding when you're actually going through that specific mode, but then when you've finished it, the level ups don't carry over to any other area of the game, so it just feels like you've wasted your time. Even the way the story is put across to us in adventure mode is lazy and unengaging. Most of the story is put forward to us as text boxes which appear next to choppy animations of Mario and Toad who stand and talk to the mostly static opponents. There's hardly any cutscenes, and because of this you can tell that this was thrown together hastily, or at least that's how it feels anyway. The actual story is ridiculous, revolving around an ancient evil tennis racket that's possessed Wario, Waluigi and Luigi, but I actually found this to be fine. I wasn't going into this game expecting an amazing Oscar-winning narrative, but it's just the way that this story is presented to us that feels boring and extremely lackluster. So basically the adventure mode is almost entirely pointless and its only purpose is to serve as a tutorial, but then there's no other modes in the game to have played a tutorial for. So in the end, the whole game is pretty much just a tutorial for something that feels like it should be a lot bigger. But let's be honest, the adventure mode isn't the only mode. There are the online and local multiplayer modes, and this is obviously where the game wants you to spend most of your time. The tournament mode works well, being quite smooth and making it easy to jump into a match and get going. I'm not really very good at the game, so I never got past round 3, but it was pretty fun while it lasted. But at the end of the day, it's just tennis. The court gimmicks are removed from this mode, so really, aside from the special abilities, this really is just a normal tennis game at this point. And for me, this doesn't hold my attention for very long. I feel like there should have been a doubles tournament mode on top of this, because then when you have a friend over, you could go up in the ranks together, which would have given it a little bit more variety, rather than constantly being one-on-one matches. Then there's the free play mode, which is pretty much the same thing as the tournament mode, only I guess it's considered to be more casual. The reason for this is because you don't rank up and you can actually play on the courts with gimmicks. This can be played locally or online, and this mode is where you can play doubles online with a friend, if that's what you're into. It's fun and it works very well, but because there's nothing to be unlocked by playing this mode and you don't rank up or collect anything, it feels a bit boring and lacks a sense of progression. And that's it. There is also a swing mode where you can use your Joy-Con as a motion controller, think Wii Sports Tennis, but I didn't even bother with this. It just seemed like a gimmick to me, but I appreciate people are into that kind of thing. So when you actually break it down, you have a tutorial, a ranked online mode, a casual online mode, and a local multiplayer mode. And they're asking for £45 to get access to this, or rather $55 for you Americans out there. Think about that for a second. That's the same price as Super Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild. That's just absolute insanity considering the pathetic amount of content in Mario Tennis Aces, and it simply cannot be justified spending that amount of money on. It's actually disgusting to me that Nintendo think that they can just slap Mario onto something and sell it for that price, while quite clearly having put very little effort into the creation of the game itself. It's appalling, and I don't want this to become a trend with future Nintendo games. They already charge too much money for what are essentially ports of Wii U games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, and now they're charging too much money for these bare bones experiences too, and it's despicable. I am a Nintendo fan, but I find this behaviour to be off-putting. Either Mario Tennis Aces needed to be a much more ambitious game, or the price point needed to reflect the content offered in the game. I would pay £15 for this game and nothing higher, because as it stands, that's all it's worth. I say as it stands because there's obviously a chance that Mario Tennis Aces could get more content in the future, which somewhat invalidates the points I'm making here. But I would argue that I'm not invalidated at all because I got this game very soon after it came out and paid a lot of money for it. I shouldn't then have to wait for the actual content to be drip-fed to me rather than having it all there from the get-go. So even if the game does get a ton of new modes and features, I'm still annoyed by it, and I bet such a huge update wouldn't be free either, which would make Nintendo seem even more like lazy money grabbers if that was the case. Another thing I've been finding really frustrating about some Nintendo games recently is how almost everything is unlocked from the start of the game, which leaves you with a lack of accomplishment after you've finished playing it, which in my opinion is a very important aspect of these kind of games. What I'm talking about is the fact that you don't unlock any characters in Mario Tennis Aces. They're all literally just there from the start, and this gets rid of a sense of mystery you feel when you don't know what you're going to come across next. Imagine if they hadn't announced that Chain Chomp was playable and you unlocked him at the end of Adventure Mode or by getting to a certain rank online. It would have been totally unexpected and would have been an awesome reward. But no. He's just there on the character select screen, and we saw he was playable in the trailers leading up to the game too. It just makes the game feel like it has even less content than it already does, because it's all just there for you as soon as you boot it up. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did a similar thing, having all of the characters already unlocked, but at least in that you unlocked carts, wheels and gliders, and a lot of them. Whereas here, there's just nothingness. What makes this worse is that you did have to unlock characters in the online tournament demo, which was released before the full game came out, so technically a demo for a game felt more rewarding to play than the game itself. Now I'm pretty sure that's literally never happened before in the history of video games. It's a very frustrating game because fundamentally the gameplay is solid and it is really fun, but everything surrounding that core gameplay is simply abysmal. There's pretty much no content, it's overpriced, there's hardly anything to unlock, and there's no sense of progression. It's not worth your time or your money in its current form and would really only be worth picking up after a severe price drop. This game has disappointed me to such a huge degree that this is the first game that I've actually sold back to a shop in years. I never ever do that because I enjoy game collecting. I mean, just look at my game room and you'll know that from a single glance. But I genuinely feel like I was scammed by paying such a high price for this game. So I've sold it and I've got Sonic Mania Plus on the Switch and still had some money left over to put towards the Spyro Reignited Trilogy too, which is a much better way of spending your £45. I'm actually a little bit annoyed by how highly this game has been received by critics, and a part of me thinks this is because most reviewers get given review copies of the game for free. So they're looking at the game from a completely different angle than as an actual person who has to purchase the games. But maybe that's just me being a bit cynical. I just wouldn't recommend you get this over the tons of other amazing games that have been released this year, or that are coming out soon. But if this looks like your kind of thing, who am I to stop you? Just don't say I didn't warn you. Thanks for watching this ranty impressions video. I hope you enjoyed it, and perhaps more so than any of my past videos, I'm interested to know what you think. Do you agree or disagree with any of my points? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, bye!